Another thing that some people kind of get confused about is what you should do if you are hypermobile, if you are very, very flexible, and some people might even consider this quote unquote being double jointed. So, what should you do for yourself if you're lifting and you feel like every time I go in, I'm just gonna pop a joint out of my socket because I'm so hypermobile? So, hypermobility is where joints have an unusually large range of motion. You can move them through a really, really long overall range. So, for my finger, for example, I can only move it back this far. And for some people, they may have hypermobility where they can move it back to where it's almost like an L, like a completely moving it backwards, right? That's not me, of course. One of the things about this, though, that people think is that I have double joints. I'm double jointed. Well, being double jointed or hypermobility is basically just having more flexible joints. And most people, when they have flexible joints or hyperflexible joints, they won't experience any problems. And some people can actually benefit greatly from this. So if you look at some dancers, ballet individuals, or people who are into gymnastics or gymnasts, they usually are extremely, extremely hypermobile. They have incredible flexibility and mobility, and they've used this as an advantage to yourself. You know, you don't look at them and think like, oh my gosh, they're gonna pop their shoulder out of their socket. No. And the reason why is because they are incredibly strong with their flexibility, right? You don't see any dancers or ballet individuals or gymnasts with very little muscle. A lot of them are very toned, especially in the legs and shoulder girdle area. And this brings the point that if you are hypermobile, you should be doing some exercise and you should be doing specific movements that are going to help to strengthen the joints through a long range of motion that's comfortable for you, right? That's comfortable for you. So one of the biggest things about this that is really important is that it will keep your joints stable. The more flexible you are, that means that you could potentially like bend or hyperextend a joint beyond its range of motion. The more strong you are and the more stable you are through that joint, the less chance it's going to have of hyperextending and doing that. So it can kind of bring you back into a more normal range of motion, if that makes sense. Think about a bodybuilder who is really, really tight and has really bulky muscles. Their range of motion is incredibly compromised because they lack flexibility and they lack that hypermobility. So if you think about it, they did that by working out in a certain way. And it's usually from working out and getting a large amount of muscle mass. And this isn't to say that you can't be super flexible and have a large amount of muscle mass, but if you're not focusing on flexibility and just focusing on lifting, this will 100% be the case. And if you're somebody who's very hypermobile, you probably don't need to be focusing on getting more flexible because you're already naturally very flexible. When it comes to cardio options too, we want to think about maybe some lower impact activities when we're first starting out to not put too much stress on your joints until you do build a foundation and base with that strength training. Once you get your joints kind of under a more stable base and a little bit stronger, you could absolutely implement some more swimming and walking and biking, right? Those are great places to start, but then you might get to a point where you want to do like a recreational sport. You might want to do like soccer or basketball or all these different things that are a little more higher impact. And if you played your cards right and did some of those good strengthening exercises to work your joints, you are going to set yourself up to be able to do all those and plus more. But swimming, walking, biking, those are really, really good options to start from. And you might realize that, hey, I don't even really want to run right now. And that's totally okay. And that's totally something that you should find out for yourself. All of these, you need to find movements and workouts that really work for you and that you enjoy. And the last thing isn't necessarily a lifting tip, but it still is a tip that's incredibly useful and should be considered heavily. And that is to make sure you are getting in enough calories and getting enough protein. So a lot of times individuals who are hypermobile, they are usually very, very skinny. And when you're skinny, this is because you are eating less calories per day than your body burns, usually a lot less. And with this, you are at an increased risk of potentially developing overuse injuries, some tendonitis, simply because you are telling your body, I don't need all of this extra energy and all of this extra protein for building muscle or helping to strengthen my body and joints. You are simply telling your body that right now we're trying to lose weight, right? We're trying to maintain our skinniness simply because that's just what you want to do, right? But with that, there's a cost of potentially increasing the risk of injury and not getting the best results. So to make sure you are recovering and getting your body stronger, getting your joints stronger, getting in enough calories, getting in enough protein, especially if you're female, please, you will not get super bulky, you will not get super fat if you just start eating a little bit more. This isn't like going to a buffet and going hog wild and eating everything under the sun. This is a slow and controlled calorie surplus that will help you to get stronger, which can help you greatly with your hypermobility and keep you lifting for a long period of time without any issues. And one of the other things that I should mention too is that you got to manage your pain too. You got to manage your pain. You don't want to be working out through pain, and finding exercises that won't cause you pain are probably one of the biggest things and the biggest catalyst of options that you can do for yourself. So make sure to consider that at the end of the day.